Hi everyone, this is Catching Up with the Nerds with your hosts Tom and JC and our special guest David. This is a podcast about two dads that are catching up on all the nerdy stuff we missed, sharing how we pass on our nerdy passions to our kids, and deep diving into nerd pop culture to make it more accessible for you guys. Welcome back, everyone.
Yay! Week number 8 of doing this.
Yeah. Episode 8. Got one left. Got
What's
one left.
2-hour episode. 2-hour episode. I know it's coming.
2-hour episode. You're mad.
Make it happen, Feige.
Pull the trigger.
All right.
Introduction time. Dave, you're up.
Yep.
Oh, me. Oh, yeah, I'm always first. Hi.
Yeah.
I am David Sago. Thanks for having me, guys. I am a podcast producer and host and founder. I founded the Grit and Grind Basketball Pod, which is on all platforms if you are into the NBA. I am also into nerd culture. I like the old school cartoons, Spider-Man, X-Men, Centurions. I go all the way back through all of them. And I'm into obviously the MCU, Marvel comic universe. I dabble in comics a little bit, dabble in anime a little bit, but for the most part, I dabble in gaming culture. I'm a PS4 owner, but I grew up on Nintendo and obviously played everything in between, inside, outside, and around with friends as I grew up. You like that one, Tom?
Yeah. Anyway, moving on. Right. Hi everyone, my name's Tom. I'm 50% of the Catching Up with the Nerds podcasts. And if JC is the Loki of Catching Up with the Nerds, no, wait, you're the Thor of the Catching Up with the Nerds. I'll be the Loki of the podcast. I messed up that intro. That was nice. Smooth. I've been married to my wife, Ellie, for the last, few years, and we've been together for 20 years. We've got 2 kids, one who is 4, named Louis, and the other one who is 11, named Emily. I like everything that has to do with video games, nerdy movies and comics and anime, and a little bit of anime. And I think that's it. Like I'm pretty much like Dave. I grew up on the video game war times. But I'm a Sega man. You're a Nintendo. I'm a Sega, and you know who's the best.
I won.
Yeah, no, you didn't win. Anyway, that was me, and now it's JC's turn.
Ooh, so I'm Juan Garay. Everybody calls me JC. I am the other half of the podcast, and I like to think that I am the Fat Thor to Tom's Korg sat playing video games. Thor Ragnarok.
Thanks.
And we're calling up kids and telling them off to get off of
playing Fortnite. Nice.
Fortnite. But I am also married to a lovely woman named Fiorella. I have an 11-year-old named Aiden, a daughter, 5-year-old named Arabelle, and all right, we'll get through this. So I love comic books, graphic novels.
It's okay. We'll get to it.
I'll get
Go
there.
for it.
Comic books, graphic novels, and occasionally dabble. Sorry, lost the plot already. All right, this is gonna be our best episode ever.
Yeah.
Let's carry on. Best ep ever.
Can't stop. Won't stop.
Alrighty. So, what are we talking about? What are we doing, Tom?
Well, this is the special in the series of WandaVision. So we're now episode 8, and like we mentioned before, there's one more to go. But before we get to that 9th episode, we need to talk about what happened in that lovely, awesome episode that happened last Friday. We assume that everyone who's listening to us now has watched the episode. So if you've not done so, please do so now, because I don't want to be here and say, hey, spoilers. We assume you've watched it. I don't want to get any other messages on Instagram saying, hey, you spoiled it for me. No. Please
spoil it
switch
for yourself.
And go watch. Yeah,
exactly.
Spoil it yourself. Right, let's start with what we thought about the episode first. I think our impressions. Who wants to go first?
Special guest.
All right, Dave, what do you think?
It's my cue. What did I think of this episode? I enjoyed it. I don't think it was one of my favorites, but it was definitely an interesting episode, definitely a necessary episode. And yeah, I was generally happy with the episode. I was a little surprised that they spent another 40 minutes of the rest of the show filling in stuff that's going on in the past. And again, I have no idea how they're gonna squeeze everything that I think may or may not happen into one episode, but it was good. It was nice to see what we saw. And it's good to know where it was good that they filled in that blank between Endgame and the show starting.
Yeah, there was definitely a lot of answers of things that I personally thought we would never see that happen in between the Avengers film. I think that was pretty cool to see those gaps being filled in. Do you want to talk about your impressions of the episode, JC?
Yeah.
Did you love it?
Funny enough, I did love this episode. I have thoughts around the timing of this episode, for sure. But the episode itself, I think, is actually my favorite episode. And it's just it has the crossover that I kind of was hoping for this whole time, which is the crossover with. This is the first time that explicitly mental health has been at the center of the episode. It's always been implied. And it's always been like, oh, that's the ongoing theory. This is all about Wanda's mental health. But now that we actually get to dive into it, it's like, I've always had this like fascination with just mental health and how it plays out, especially in pop culture. And I just think that this just hit the sweet spots for me. So for me, I actually absolutely loved it.
What were we talking about when you said about in terms of timing? Is that something you want to elaborate later on, or is that something you okay to talk about? Oh, okay, fine. We'll get back to that then. Yeah. I'll get my answer in time eventually. Personally, love that episode. I'm not sure that's my favorite one, but again, any episode of any series with some sort of answers to, direct answers to any questions or any gaps we had, I always tend to get those episodes up there in the ranking of yes, these are the greatest one. I thought it was good. I really, in terms of how they paced it, I would have loved to spend a little bit more time in the real world, as in not going back in time. There's just that scene with the parents. I guess we'll get back to it. I thought it was slightly too long, a little bit. It could have been explained and re-edited in a way that you could have shaved a couple of minutes that would have been given then to
Mephisto.
Not Mephisto, but a bit more Agnes time. But yeah, again, the one thing that I keep saying that every week, the one thing that I really love was the acting again. I think that's above anything else is Agnes and Wanda both deserve some sort of reward at the end of the shows,
honestly.
Golden Globe or whatever, which were last night. But yeah, again, it's outstanding acting from everyone, but especially for those two ladies. Actually, every week it's like, I'm like, it keeps getting better and better. Right, moving along with how it looks like, and I think every week there's less to say about the aesthetics and everything else. Apart from what else could we say? This is just now we fully moved into the MCU world, right? It looks like a movie, it feels like a movie, a short movie. That's what it feels like in terms of the looks. Do we want to talk about the Marvel logo at the start?
On look though, but on look though, what I will say is like what caught me is actually what they didn't do. I actually really liked how they shot the transitions from one like memory scene to the other when they go back through time. But I kept thinking, you remember Birdman or like 1917 or whatever, like the continuous shot thing. It would have been dope if they had done that. Like just a continuous shot through like every part of her memory and just kind of kept it going. Even if they kind of did like a fake cut, I think it would have been such a nice opportunity because they were using those doors. Yeah. You could just easily like step to the next. Ambitious, but I think it would have been very cool visually if they could have done that.
that would have, they have the budget to do it and the brains to do it. So it could have been a way.
nice.
We'll see. I probably won't happen in the next one because if there's going to be a big fight scene and stuff,
Yeah.
I can't do that in one go.
Yeah.
That would have been badass. That'd be a weird flex just to go. We can film that without CGI.
Yeah.
Maybe not. Right. Yeah, in terms of looks, I don't have much else to say. I guess you get a point. Shall we go with the plot? It's JC's time to shine, walking us through the episode and giving us a 3-sentenced short episode. Yeah, drink that water, hydrate. Let's go.
Needs to be
Hydrate. Off we go. All right, theme music. Play it, Tom. We'll get there. We'll slice it in one day when we have money to actually have theme music for each person.
Yes.
Okay. So first of all, the 3-sentence summary. We get a which is which battle.
Nice. Yeah.
We get a bewitching trip down memory lane.
Oh my. Yeah.
And we get a vision into the future.
Okay, so in soccer terms or in football for us, that's a red card.
I thought you were going to say hat trick, but never mind.
No, it's not a hat trick. I could have gone with a yellow card, but you get straight back to the changing rooms.
As my old basketball coach used to say, sometimes you got to grab yourself by the hand and just take yourself out of the game.
Yes.
Sometimes that's required.
Double take. Go on.
All right, go on. Let's do this. So, episode is called Previously On. We start off with the Marvel intro. To your point, it kind of fades to that purple, which is pretty cool. And then we have this open in 1693 in Salem, Massachusetts, where the Salem witch trials are happening. Someone pointed out that this specific year is the last year of the trials. So This is very much a witch-based trial, where we see all witches gathering, and Agatha is accused, who is now no longer Agnes, accused of using dark magic, and she says that the magic just kind of like bent to her power, so she was able to wield it. To long story short on that one is all the witches attack her from all sides. She's able to basically suck their magic out of them, and all is left is this dehydrated husk. She eventually has ultimate showdown with her mom. Her mom eventually also kind of shoots her with that other magic. She then sucks the magic out of her mom as well, and mom's gone, and we know where Agatha got her powers. We then cut back to the basement where we pick up where we left it off after the amazing theme song that we got for Agnes. For Agatha. And then she first admits to making fake Pietro and calls him Fietro, which I feel is like the line that Darcy needed to have in that moment, but was taken from her very swiftly. But she's kind of trying to figure out how Wanda is creating this gigantic illusion, because she's worked so hard for years to just make small illusions, and she can't figure out how Wanda made this huge illusion that even works on its own. And Wanda can't or won't answer. But then Agatha says we're going back to check out some real reruns, and we could take this kind of back through memory lane sort of moment where we start off going into Sokovia through these doors that kind of lead into her memories, and we go to the infamous apartment where the bomb fell. Right, we get to see them as kids. We get a younger version of Wanda cast, which I thought was a good casting acting wise, but I think look wise was the right look. But I thought the little girl was very effective in how she played the scene though. But then we find out, and this we'll come back to this, but I honestly love the idea that the dad was selling DVDs out of his suitcase, and I'll come back to why. To me, that actually hit really hard. But then we see the kids wanting to have like a movie night where the purpose is they only speak English and they watch English shows, right? To almost like prepare themselves for a life outside of Sokovia or just with the rest of the world in some way, right? But then the bomb drops, it kills her parents. We see the kids hiding under the bed. Wanda reaches out and then somehow is about to do something to the bomb, and then we cut back to Agatha, and then we get to hear her say, "Oh, you probably used a probability hex on it, or you use a probability hex on it. So we never actually see the magic happen, but we know that that's how they get out of the room. We then go to the Hydra lab. Wanda admits that she actually willingly joined Hydra as like this like revolutionary group, but then she is sent into the room with the Infinity Stone, still stuck to Loki's scepter, and then the stone comes loose, comes to her. It reveals itself as a yellow stone, and she gets to see a vision of what we now know is the Scarlet Witch.
Yeah.
And then we see her at the end watching an episode of The Brady Bunch, which also has some stuff that we need to talk about later. But then we cut back to Avengers HQ, and this is now when they've already, like, she's joined the Avengers. She's sitting with Vision in the room and is clearly having a moment of grief in the early stages of grief. And Vision is just trying to help her, and he's being really nice. And then he has probably one of the best speeches, honestly, in the whole MCU, when he talks about that grief is just the perseverance of love. And it just lands really nicely. And we get to see how the relationship begins to start and blossom. We then cut over to the Sword HQ, where we find Wanda post-blip trying to recover Vision's body. She goes to the front desk and does what all of us do, which is be really mean to people that have no real control over letting you into the building or not, but we decide that we're going to be mean to them regardless. And then she meets with Hayward and sees the dismantled body, and honestly, like an absolutely harrowing scene, like the way that it's dismantled and is being taken apart. She then wants to bury, she says, she wants to bury him. Right? She wants to bury Vision's body and give him a proper send-off. Hayward says he can't because that is $3 billion worth of vibranium. She breaks the glass, goes down, and then she's next to Vision's head, and she can't feel him anymore. And it feels like it's a moment of, to a certain degree, a little bit of closure, realizing that he actually is dead, and all she wants to do is just be able to move on and grieve him. She goes to her car, finds a letter where we realize she's driving to Westview based on what's in the letter, and to find her going to this empty plot of land which just has a foundation in it. And we find that it's actually a deed to that land that Vision drew up for them, where he wants them to grow old in. And she falls to her knees and unleashes like a huge burst of magic that transforms the whole town. It kind of gets us back to the Westview that we know. And we see her create Vision from scratch, right? And then we kick off with that first Dick Van Dyke episode where they're in black and white. We then know that Agatha's in the audience. She starts clapping, and then we cut away to Agatha holding the two twins by like purple magic rope thing, and they're both being held by the neck in this, and then Agatha is in full dress and everything. She looks the witch part. She's up in the air. She's like channeling all those vibes. And then we cut back to no go. Like, that's the end of the episode. We're done at that point, but we have a post-credit scene in which we get to see a version of Vision that was put together by Hayward, which is this is the assault they're going to launch on the town, we now find out. And it is a white version of Vision that has been recreated, and it does not feel like it is the Vision that we know. And there you have it.
Yeah, badass. So much stuff going on in that one.
Ton of stuff.
Yeah, a ton of stuff. So, do we want to go back through the episode and pick our favorite moments, or the moments we'd like to discuss a bit more?
I'm happy to share why I feel this episode came at the wrong time.
Go for it.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, so I just feel that if this episode comes before the one where Monica runs into the Hex, I think it's more effective. I think that Monica running into the Hex sets up your last episode better than this episode, because what just happened, we get more connected into, this is about Wanda, because we've talked about who is this actually about? Is it about Vision? Is it about Wanda? Is it about Monica? It is about Wanda's grief, and that sets that up very nicely to then bring back Monica as, now that Wanda knows everything that she knows, and Monica running back in, that informs the next set of events is about to happen, because I'm assuming we're gonna pick up the last episode with Monica just outside the house, right? So I felt that if you could have flopped them, I think it would have been a bit more effective. So I liked the episode on its own. I just feel the timing of it isn't quite right.
I see what you mean. It would just be difficult with because don't forget, when Monica does run in, Wanda's hostile towards her, and for that to happen, for her to reject her rather than embrace her, they would have to swap that around.
Yep.
Right? She would have to, she would have to embrace her as knowing that Agnes is Agatha Harkness.
Yes. And I still think you can write your way around that. But I agree that moment where they have the showdown and she kind of does the superhero land, you have to adjust the writing on that a bit. So yeah, no, agree. And it's current. You couldn't just re-edit, but I think you could do a little bit of rewrite. But no, I agree that is problematic.
Yeah, there's also the fact that I think Monica showing up and confronting Wanda outside is the last straw for Agatha. And she's like, she sees that from inside, and she's like, "All right, I had enough. Let's get
that's
this.
That's the catalyst to tell the story.
I think so. But okay, I agree with you.
That's a good point. No, I totally missed that.
I agree with you that in terms of her going back in as with the superpowers and everything, then it would have been cool that way also. But you can rewrite it any way you really want to. It's not. I don't think either of them were necessarily better or worse than the other one. But yeah, they would have made. I would have been mad at that. I would have been okay with having it in that order too. I just think that the way they've set it up, it feels like they did okay. But again, you could. To be fair, that episode you could have had it also as episode number 1, like just trying to explain everything and then bang, go into it, which would have been weird.
I've heard that theory a couple of times on the web right now. Just like you could start off with this episode and just set the stakes for the whole show.
Yeah,
and that's where you get into like the sitcom format versus the actual ongoing narrative of the MCU, and which one do you favor? Because you put this in, and then the sitcom format doesn't feel as mysterious as it did before, but at the same time, the relationship feels more meaningful if you get this first. So there's like a plot versus style thing that could be at odds. So I can see how you could do that, but I don't think you need to go that early. I would have been perfectly happy with like 3 sitcoms and then getting this episode. I think I would have been fine with that.
Yeah, that's true. Right. Should we? I don't know. The one thing I want to pick up on is I don't know if it feels within the Easter eggy part of the show, but there's a couple of scenes that I thought were really cool, and I sort of want to touch on a bit. I think the opening scene of the Agatha, well, I like to call it Agnes. I think it's cool, but the witch trial. I thought that was really cool because I was expecting the actual trial to take place. So in terms of origin stories, there's a slight twist, but again, we that's what Marvel does with taking liberties with the original material. So I thought that was pretty cool, and I actually like the choice of color was very important to me. That the fact that she's using that she's got that purple thing going on there, where it's which we've seen before in Doctor Strange, where all the baddies are drawing their energies from Dormammu in the dark universe or whatever it's called. So I thought that was a cool thing, and it's a really nice way to explain how Doctor Strange is going to fit in very soon in the next episode. It's because it's getting to the point where I think it's inevitable that it's gonna, he's gonna be dropped in, maybe at the end of episode 9 or maybe throughout. Who knows? But I think that throughout the episode, there's a bunch of hints like that. There's like, there's way too many references to me, as in, when she gets to do the spell to open up the door, the first door, she pulled that hair off Wanda's head just to start a spell, just to get the door open. And that's a spell that there's something that is used by Doctor Strange, I think, on Thor in which one is it? Is it on rank? No, it's on, I can't remember which Avengers film it is now, but when Thor gets back to Earth to pick up Loki, who's now it's the start of Ragnarok, I think, where Thor gets back to Earth, and I can't remember. It's a mid-credit scene. I don't remember. Anyway, the Thor lands in Doctor Strange's house, and he
Oh,
takes one of his
yeah.
hair, and he could pull one of his hair. It's like, whoosh, here's your brother. Go get him.
Yeah.
So that's
It's
a
an
spell that's been
end
used by
credit
him.
scene. Yeah.
It's an end credit scene.
Yeah.
So I thought it was a pretty cool
I'm
one.
fairly
So
sure.
it's fantastic. And that's being used, and again, it's a Doctor Strange reference. You know, that it's being implied that he's gonna be there. I can feel it in my bones. So I think that was the first one. I really enjoyed the opening. I think was one of the best opening from all the episodes we've had so far. And then going on into Agatha explaining why she's doing the things she's doing and all the spells and stuff like that. And what's made clear from the opening is that actually you think that she was in charge of everything. She's putting all the strings, and she's doing it because, at least for me, it was, Agatha is there, and she, Wanda got into her space, and she started using magic, and she thought that maybe she was controlling Wanda to get to something. But actually, it looks like now, well, actually, Agatha is questioning why she's there, and she looked a bit scared at the start of it, as in she's questioning what's going on, and she's like, I'm not too sure who you are. I've got my doubts. And that's coming from a place of like, I'm actually a bit shitting bricks here. I don't know who you are. I don't know how powerful you are, but you've been doing things, like, tell me. And I think that was quite a nice twist to it. I wasn't expecting that. I wasn't expecting her to be questioning her. I thought it would be more like, now I've got you, I've got your kids. Let me explain my plan. All the baddies doing all this moves, like, once I got you and before I kill you in the next 35 minutes, let me walk you through my plan. I thought that was going to happen, but no, actually it's like, oh, damn, who are you? I thought like when she said that, I was like, oh, cool. She's not, and also saying that it opens the door, a possibility for her role within the next few movies, which is going to be, well, there's room for her to turn around and be a good witch, if that's it. Potentially go to the good side of things and be a mentor maybe to Wanda, or maybe like be a sidekick to Wanda or something like that. So I don't know if you guys had the same with Agatha's role and the way she was portrayed in that episode. I don't know if you agree with me on that one.
Yeah, it is interesting that they did that. That she was very much curious in this episode. She wasn't. It was when we normally get these sort of normally it's I'm going to take you down memory lane.
Yeah.
To teach you something about yourself, whether it's like Christmas Carol or one of any of those shows where they take you down and show you your past and try to unlock something within you. She was more going down that path to understand her, like you said, and that was an interesting way of doing it. And then we have the revelation at the end with the nickname finally being applied. And it's interesting that the way she says the name, you're the Scarlet Witch, leads us to believe that it's like a post, almost like a position that's held and has been held over time. And interestingly, that almost ties nicely into the vision that Wanda has when she touches the Mind Stone, when she sees a faint figure in the background, who basically has the silhouette of the Scarlet Witch that we know from the comics, almost as if that was her getting those powers bestowed upon her.
And that vision was again another thing that I thought was very Doctor Strangey, as in like that's how he usually flies in, and he's always with. If you watch, because I watched Doctor Strange back last week, and like there's a few times that he just flies around and he lands with his arms open like this, like the way. It's the same floating way. I thought was quite interesting.
And that's also how Agatha flies up at the end of the first scene. She flies up with her arms.
Witches fly, wizards.
Mm-hmm.
That was quite. I thought that was quite cool.
Just in general, just bringing in the I guess witchcraft mythology was pretty cool. Because we haven't seen a whole lot of that since Doctor Strange, and even Doctor Strange is like it's touched on for sure, but here I feel like they really leaned into like, oh no, like there's types of witches, like for example, like the Scarlet Witch, right? And like we see the trials and how from those days they had groups of witches that ran together and did stuff, right? So it's like we get a new mythos that we haven't had much of before.
And it's referred throughout the MCU as well. Like Thor's mom is a witch. If you remember in Endgame, like she says, I know you're not the Thor I know because I was raised by witches. And it's I think it's referred in a bunch of films or other films. But it was weird to see somebody else doing magic with their hands that is not Doctor Strange or Wanda. I thought it was quite cool to see that at the start. That's why I really dig the intro on that one. I thought it was pretty special. I was going to move along to the next thing. I think you wanted to. I think JC said something about because again in the series in the episode we move on to opening the first door and then they go into Sokovia with the parents, and I think you said something about DVDs coming out of the box.
Yeah. Before I jump into that one thing I will say for any listeners out there that really have a lot of time on their hands and want to do this, for anybody who's watched the movie The Witch, have you guys watched it on Netflix? Or as I used to call it, the Vivitch. That if anybody can do like take Agatha's theme song and slice it into that movie to make it so that Agatha was behind the whole thing the whole time.
Oh damn.
So damn good, man. If someone could do that.
Send that to Netflix.
Because that whole entire movie is just gaslighting. That's what you never really see the witch do anything. Yeah. And I'm like, it would be such a good like mashup. But anyways, moving on from that. No, the reason why that I got super excited by the DVDs is that resonated for me in multiple ways. And I think I mentioned this maybe in like the first ep or something about this being an immigrant story and about how immigrants like haven't been an immigrant to a country. It's like, yes, you do decode the culture through pop culture to a certain degree.
Yeah.
But more so, it's like what her dad was doing is something that I grew up seeing everywhere. Like when I went away for uni, it was right when Napster kicked off. And I would come back, and then every time I'd come back home to Honduras, there would be more people in the streets selling DVDs that clearly had been movies downloaded from Napster, burned onto the DVD, and then sold in the street. And you saw it all the time. And like every time like my parents would come up to visit, they'd be like, oh, hey, we got you some movies and stuff. And it'd be like either like super bad versions that like everything looks super white, or actually like decent versions and stuff. But it was always like 50 lempiras, which is the equivalent of like $1.50, $2 or so back then, that you would just kind of pick up a movie for. So when I saw it, I was like, no, that tracks. That like when you're down on your luck and right around, and I need to check what was the time frame for this, right around that time, that's totally something you would see in the third world, right? And so I thought that was really authentic, but also like really sweet how like he's trying to also make a movie night out of it because that's what he has to offer his children, right? So the whole thing just really landed because it's such a story that you get used to. Oh, and also the fact that they used it to have like English night, where it's like we're gonna only speak English. Like all of that spoke to being an immigrant, and I kind of enjoyed that because we don't hear that a lot in the MCU. So we were talking in our previous podcast about like representation. Well, that's not representing specific like race or culture. It is representing a socioeconomic level in other countries that oftentimes doesn't get talked about in the MCU. So I just thought it was a nice kind of like everyday person point of view that is missing, which is nice to have.
And then also they do show outside and the war is going on at that point. So it's also something that they can use to drown out the noise of war, which is something that sadly a lot of people in a lot of different countries have had to do. When you have to raise children in that kind of environment, you use things to distract them from what's really going on.
Yeah. If you look at it from that perspective, it's a little bit of like Life is Beautiful, that old Italian movie. The dad's constantly trying to just shield them from war, just like retain their childhood.
It's funny to say that, but it's like it's one of the reasons why I like the MCU so much, that even though it's a superhero story, it's based in, you go into space, you go into the cosmos, there's still a lot of things that are very much grounded in reality and things that are so relatable. to someone somewhere. There's always going to be something. I think that there's not a lot of superheroes worlds and universes that are able to do that so effectively. And saying that, I'm actually want to move on to the next bit that I thought was probably to me it was actually the best part of the episode, was that and I think JC talked about it, is that scene in the Avengers HQ where Vision's talking about grief and love. I thought like the way that one sentence, that one line he says, so I was like, why am I chopping onions? Like, what's going on? I was like, he went so deep for what is supposed to be a robot, caricature. But I thought that was so really well written. I was like, damn, you guys are just again hitting me when it hurts. Trying to make me cry the entire episode. But that was quite cool. I thought I was like, and again, that's what I meant with even though it's superheroes, they're extremely relatable because of these kind of scenes where it's like, wow, where did that come from? It's like, and also it gives you like you said, an insight into how they fell in love. Because if you remember, if you just been skipping between movies and like, oh, you went from the Age of Ultron into Infinity Wars, it's like, well, certainly they're like, they're spending time together, and then bang, they moved in together. They're in Scotland. Like, huh? How did that work? How did that happen? And there's like, I thought it was a nice touch to see how that relationship started, or not even started, but solidified itself and grew. And yeah, again, that scene, I don't know, I had to reach for the tissues almost, and I was like, oh no, don't do that to me. And then I think the last one I want to talk about, I think it was the Hayward scene where Wanda goes and pick up the body, which you realize is she's not there to steal the body, and she didn't go away with it, she didn't live with it. And I think we can go back, we can elaborate on that later on in the questions part of the episode. So I think my next favorite part of the episode was the one when we see Wanda getting into the Swords HQ, and she's meeting with Hayward, and she gets to see Vision's body being taken apart. And again, that's a very sad moment when she realizes that it's not easy dead, but now he's someone else's possession. And then she gets down there and she trying to feel him, in a non-sexual way. And so she gets again that one line, which is, "I can't feel you." And then you this is when you realize it's like, well, a couple of weeks ago she was living with him, sharing a house, sharing a flat, and she could feel him. I'm sorry.
Best episode ever.
I'm taking that. I'm keeping that. I'm rolling that.
There's actually a scene in I can't remember which. Oh, I think it's in Infinity War, where she actually holds her hand up, and you can see there's a little bit of magic between her hand and the Mind Stone, and she says, "I can feel you." Yeah.
And because the stone is speaking to him, and he doesn't understand what it is that the stone is saying. But yeah, and then you move forward a couple of weeks later, and the guy is just there, taken apart, and she can't feel his power. She can't feel Vision anymore. So it's another sad moment. So I don't know if you guys also reach for the tissues on that one. I wasn't the only one crying at that point. Must have been.
Depends on what type of feel you're talking about.
All of the feels. I think I'm just going to mention the last scene, which was also there's two more, William. Let's go quickly through them. I think the last scene where obviously you see Agatha with two kids on leash, which I thought for a Disney show was a bit. I was like, this is.
You can tell they weren't quite sure what to do with that. Like they ended up with these really thin purple wires, which don't look like they would. They look like they would actually extend if the kids took a step forwards, rather than sever their throat or choke them or anything like that.
It was an interesting. It was an interesting setup, I thought.
Yeah.
Sure, because I would expect them to be maybe tied up to a tree or something, like she was at the start, like a lamppost or something with some energy in the back, holding their hands. Like to me
Yeah,
would have
those
been maybe
handcuffs.
even
Yeah.
better, like handcuffs or something.
Or just
but,
had like smoke something or other.
Yeah.
Just yeah.
Something wrapping them rather than
Yeah.
holding them by the neck. I was
Yeah,
like, wow,
Yeah.
that's some serious childcare right there, man.
But again, she's a witch. She's meant to be nasty, so it's like, that's one of the nastiest where you can hold someone. It's like, especially someone else's kid. You're like, look, they're my dogs, basically. So I thought that was quite interesting. So I'm very aware that it's a Disney property, and I'm like, when I'm watching them, I'm not expecting anything too much that's too out there,
Too violent.
too violent. So it to me was not a shock, but I was like, it looks odd. But again, she's a witch, so it doesn't matter. And then last,
and I kind of felt like if you're gonna go to bat and do something that's a little more not R-rated, but what I'm talking about, like it's in the upper end of PG-13. That's not the scene I would have picked. Like that's not the one to make a point on.
Yeah, that's true.
But sure, they made a choice.
They made a choice. And then moving along, I think that the post or the mid credit scene, I think that was I was literally almost jumped out of my sofa and went, yes, this is awesome. When we see spectral vision or white vision, or depends how you want to call it, and I was like, yes, please, I want to see that. Some vision on vision action. That's gonna be awesome, because they're gonna go full Captain America in Endgame when they battle each other. It's gonna be the same thing. You're like, yes, I'm there for that. That's the content I want to see. Anyway, Easter eggs. Very light on Easter eggs, I felt this week. I don't know. I actually didn't pick up anything apart from nothing. I got nothing. You guys have some for me?
The funny thing about the Easter eggs in this show, bit of overlap there. The funny thing about Easter eggs in this episode is that a lot of the Easter eggs tie back into the show itself.
Exactly.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So it's all the references back to things that we've seen in the show. Like, for example, when we see the hex get made, it shows us the Hart family, the woman in the Hart family, the wife.
Mm-hmm.
It shows us the mailman was a pizza delivery guy. The thing that I mentioned earlier about Vision and Wanda, like that being a mirror of a scene that was in another Avengers film. Like it all just sort of ties back in on itself again.
Yep.
We get the beeping of the Stark bomb, which mirrors the beeping of the toaster in episode 1, and all kinds of things like that. The heart that's on the deed is reminiscent of the heart that's actually in episode 1 on the calendar.
Yeah.
All stuff like that. Or the intro film, like the DVDs are the shows that they've been mirroring in the sitcom. It's all very self-referential.
If anything, I found it's the absence of what they didn't address or undid that was interesting. To your point, like we see the DVDs in the suitcase, but we don't see the one that comes after Malcolm in the Middle, like which was meant to be The Office, like the mockumentary style, right? Where you get the confessionals and stuff. Like we don't get to see that.
It's the time. It's the timing. It wouldn't have been on DVD yet.
Yes, you're right.
Yeah.
That show wouldn't have been out yet. Yeah, so actually it frames. No, then it is done perfectly, right? But then how does she have that sitcom moment, right? Or maybe that's what she's watching with Vision when they're watching TV in the room in Avengers HQ. Maybe that's what she's watching when she arrived in the States.
Yeah,
she started watching those like confessional mockumentary style stuff.
She isn't yet, but she might get there. Like I think she's still watching, because that's the other thing. The sitcoms that they actually watch on television in the episode go in roughly in time with the show as well. So when she's a kid, they watch which one do they watch? They watch the Dick Van Dyke Show.
Yeah.
And then I think later on they show her, is it sitting in her cell watching one of the later ones?
Brady Bunch.
Yes. And then they show her watching Malcolm in the Middle when Vision comes in.
Oh, you're right. That is it. Yeah, so maybe it does come later then that she watches the kind of office style stuff.
Yeah, yeah. And maybe they just actually watched it in real time, right?
True.
It's possible.
Very true.
Yep.
So it wasn't watched on DVD. It was watched in real time, and that could have been one of the shows that they shared. Having watched Malcolm in the Middle and stuff like that at that time when they were being held there, they might have then actually put on the television and watched something that was on, and that could have been
That makes sense.
The Office or Modern Family.
Because that was one of the ones like the Easter eggs around the episodes, but also like I was trying to track as they were going through like the going through the past moment how it matched up to all the various ads that we saw, right? All the adverts, and the only one that I couldn't quite place, and I've got my theories about it, but it's the yogurt, right? It's like you couldn't open the magic and it killed you. I'm assuming that's somewhat alluding to like people going in with the Mind Stone and dying every time because they can't unlock its magic is the only way I could connect that, because I didn't see where the yogurt one ties in. I don't know, what you guys think?
I think it's more I think it might be a reference to what could happen to the children if they tried to leave the hex. Because remember, they want to eat something, and then the shark comes along and gives them the yo magic, but then they can't open it. And I think that, and they end up just starving to death because they're not real, right? They wouldn't be able to free themselves, or they can't live without the magic. If you think of the yogurt as magic itself.
Yeah. Or she
they can't take the lid off, so they can't survive without the magic.
And actually, and we saw that with Vision front and center.
Yes.
So maybe it's a case of like, yo magic represents Wanda's magic, and other people can't use it to keep themselves wherever they are. They would die they would die waiting for it.
Yeah. Well, they were specifically made by the magic.
Yeah.
The kids were made by the magic, so they would die if they don't have access to it.
Yeah, that makes sense. So that was one I picked up on, and the other, and that but you're right. That would track actually, because that one I was curious about, and then the other one was the mailman. Like we talked about the postman.
Yeah.
It's like all of a sudden it's like he's just the dude. I was like, oh man, like we had all these theories, Easter eggs with the postman. Are like,
yep.
No go. The only Mephisto related, which I think we're all, I don't know if everybody's still on the Mephisto bandwagon, but I think we're slowly coming off of it. But in one of the symbols that was set up around the room, it had a big M. That's what only thing I picked up on.
That's why I'm still riding that train. That's why I'm still on the Nightmare Mephisto train. He's my driver, and I'm following him. So
and the book still
the book's still a thing. Yeah, we don't know about it yet.
Still there. Although there's a lot more, but there's a lot more YouTube videos going around about what was the other guy, the other bad guy you mentioned, Dave? I think last week.
Catan, yeah,
whatever you say it.
Catan,
which I don't think they'll pick him because his name's just too hard to pronounce. And that's not good marketing. So, but in terms of storyline and how they are,
it's too complicated. He's not going to get hired. Sorry, Chathan. We would love to have you.
You're cool and everything, but you can't. No, but he's mentioned like the story that they're sort of heavily relying on, like drawing inspirations from is from him. That's his storyline. So yeah. Makes sense.
Or would they bring him in the cast and go like, we really like your look, but would you consider changing your name to Tom?
Yeah,
because Tom would sell really well with our U.S. audience. Can we do that?
You'll sell really well to housewives between 35 and 45. Key demographics.
And he's like, I've had this name for 3,000 years, but let me see what I can do.
He's like, well, we're going to change your look a little bit. We're going to make you tall, dark hair, and just call you Agent Hayward.
How do you feel about a cardigan? We could totally put a cardigan on you, and kids would love it everywhere. It's like you can come in, like take off your shoes, and there's like a little a little train track you play with, and all of a sudden it's a kid show.
There you go. There you
Damn,
go.
I'm there for that.
I'm totally be there for that. Mr.
Yeah.
Rogers meets Cathan.
No, that would be weird. Yep. Looks like you got something else to add to that theory.
Oh no, I'm done with my Cathan theory. I'm dangerously close to red card, so I'm going to step away from that
You
theory.
already had a red card. You can't get any worse.
Well, I mean, the one that I want to kind of get your guys' thoughts on is just the overwhelming theme of mental health throughout this. I just think that it's done in a very smart and considered way. Was kind of my takeaway from it, all the way from the initial kind of moment where we're going down through memory lane, and the fact you brought up earlier, someone's mentioned like Agnes is going through that moment, or Agatha's going through that moment with curiosity, right? And if this were talk therapy and they were talking to you through a traumatic moment, that's the way you should attack it, or approach it. Is you should go through it with a lens of curiosity, to just understand those moments rather than judge those moments.
Yeah.
And I felt that worked very effectively when you look at it through the mental health kind of like lens of things. But also at the same time, one of the things that haven't gone through behavioral therapy, it's like you're never taken through all those memories at that level all at once. Like that would be considered a very unkind way of having someone process trauma. But Agatha's not there to be kind, right? So that part I can understand. But the fact that you would actually go through it and ask all those questions throughout that sequence is very much tracks. But then when we then get further dropped in, like the mental health within the mental health, where we see Vision and Wanda, to your point, that very, very emotional scene. But that's another moment of how to manage grief, is that you begin to understand what it means rather than fight against it, right? So Wanda's clearly fighting against her grief. And then when Vision says that, it's like, that's just another way of love continuing to show up.
Yeah.
That's just classic reframing, right? In mental health, it's like you reframe it and then you empower the person to use that feeling in a different way rather than trying to suppress the feeling. So I thought that was also super, super, super well done. And then as we kind of come out of it, and she has the moment where she's at the plot of land. That's another really, for me, really, really interesting point, because her breakdown happens when she considers the life. It doesn't happen when she considers the loss. She considers the life that lay ahead of them. And that's when the real breakdown happens. So for me, just all of it, man, just like it spoke a lot to a lot of issues of mental health that I feel very passionate about. And I'm just glad that finally that stuff gets to show up, because we've been teased about it so much in this episode, but they did it, I felt, in a considered way.
It's and it's interesting to see at what point she finally broke down, and went super powerful and let all of those emotions out, and created an entire house and everything. And I think that's the most important part. Is like it's for the experience of grief is usually when somebody passes away and everything, something that horrible happens to anyone. Usually, one reaction could be that it's disbelief, right? Or so it's not happening, it's not real, it's not blah blah. But I think the realization part of something, someone is gone forever, is the little things, that happen when you realize that, oh, that person's not there to share that moment with me, and it's actually the moment that are the worst in terms of mental health. It's not who is gone and who, what happened. It's more like, man, I'll never get to do XYZ with that person. Like, we never get to share those moments. And I think that's why that scene was so amazing. It's just like, suddenly it's not like her looking back and saying, oh, he's no longer there. It's like, damn, like this should have been us living together, having maybe kids or something, and having
we were supposed to grow old together.
Exactly, grow old, and that's exactly the message that's on there. That's I thought that was a great moment. It was very well portrayed there.
And there was one more that this is definitely looking into it. I don't think they expressly wanted to do this, or maybe they did. I'm not gonna give credit, but there's something that I've been told in the past where they tell you that wisdom is the intersection of emotions and rationality, right? It's like you can be extremely like Spock rational about things. You can be like totally like emotional, out of control about things, and wisdom is when you find the sweet spot in the middle. And that's why I thought that scene, the way that she was coming at it very much from an emotional perspective, just like this sucks. Like my brother's gone, like my family's gone, and Vision, all he can offer is rationality. All he can offer is like, well, but it can't all be that, right? Like
Yeah.
he makes a very rational statement, and I feel that that's where their relationship together means they balance each other out to get that sweet spot in the middle. And I just like off the back, I was just like, I now am fully invested in this relationship, and I love that that's who they are to each other. Like I can understand now why they got together. Was before I was like, why is she looking after an android? Like, why is she looking at him? I'm like, we got America's ass on the other side. It's like, why is she looking at like android guy?
It's because of his sentient weapon.
Exactly.
Hey. We had to go there again.
There, best episode ever.
Again,
so
that's why it was very important to see those little bits in between the movies, because to me, like you, that's what I said before, is that it didn't make that much sense to why they were in love.
Correct.
And it felt the way like out of nowhere. It was like, huh, why? But then it does make a lot of sense now. You see it from that perspective. It's they complete each other. That's how it is. Which also, yeah.
God.
No, I was gonna go back into Wanda's life now, because it's that if you think about it, again, there are theories that her kids are not real, or that in the last episode the kids might die, but I don't think that's going to be a thing, or they will just disappear. And it's like, if you think about it, her parents are gone, the brother's gone, so that's direct family that are all dead. The men that she was married to, were they married? Technically, yeah. Well, they felt like they were married. So the other half is also gone, and it's probably, I think, it's reading into this week's episode 9. I think Vision might die again. So everyone that was close to her will be gone, and now if you take the kids away as well, because the Wanda story is a very sad one. Why would there be anything happy to happen? That would happen to her in the future. I think we might see that she goes completely, in a deeper, mindset after that. Who knows what's going to happen at the end of episode 9 if she realizes that the kids weren't real, or they can't get out of the hex, and it's going to be an interesting thing. And again, in terms of mental health, that's going to be another massive blow, probably the biggest blow out of them all, because it's the kids is even more intolerable in terms of pain and and suffering if anything goes wrong with them. And it's like, I can't see any happy ending, I was gonna say, but yeah, the happy endings for Wanda in terms of WandaVision as a series. Like maybe in Doctor Strange 2 there's going to be some sort of betterment for her. I don't know, but for now I'm very going into a very dark path for her.
It depends. This is, are we in theories territory now?
Yeah, sure.
Pivot into it. Yeah, go
on. Because there is the possibility that whatever happens between Vision and Vision, they can't work out their conflicts. Vision could phase into White Vision's body.
Yeah, I mean,
and use that husk to survive outside of the hex.
So I was totally there for that theory as well. I was completely I was actually very much agreeing with that. But then also, if you've watched Spider-Man 3, Far From Home, the first 5 minutes. Spider-Man 2. Sorry, Spider-Man 2. I was going to keep this 3. So Far From Home, the opening, there's a lot of there's a bunch of stuff for Iron Man saying he died as a hero, but there's also a bit for Vision where you see that he's considered as dead and gone. So there's a lot of homage being paid to him, and it's like Spider-Man 2 Far From Home is taking place after WandaVision, so it's like, to me it's like, oh shit, the guy is actually dead.
Good point.
So
Good point.
Very good point. I thought of that.
But I do like the option of transferring Vision's conscious, or spirit or soul or whatever into the spectral vision or white vision. That would be cool too, because that's what they wanted to do in Infinity War anyway, right? They were trying to get the stone out and keep the rest of Vision functioning.
Correct.
I don't know, but I agree with you. That's a good good theory.
Oh, and we know that Shuri's got Vision backed up.
Oh, she started it. She did start it. I don't know if she's completed the task.
Yeah, did she complete it? Yeah, that's the question. Yeah, because if they've got Vision backed up, they've got a new body. Wanda kind of does a little magic
Which is what
thing
happens to
and jump
Ultron,
starts
right?
him. Yeah. So
Started
in theory,
uploading
that could
into
happen.
Vision. Yeah.
I
Oh
like where
no,
that's
this
going.
WandaVision. In terms of theories, also there's the theory that Ultron is going to be somehow in episode 9 because of James Spade's voice being cast for episode 9. He's on the IMDb, so he was the voice of Ultron in the film. So he's somehow involved in
Be a
episode 9.
flashback. Surely it could be
sure
like a
it's gonna be a
flashback, or the Captain Marvel stuff that we've gotten.
Possible. I'm thinking also that it might be that, and that's one of the our question list is like, what does White Vision sounds like? Maybe as a trolling moment, they just put his voice, Ultron's voice, as Vision.
Would Sword do that?
Just a troll, just troll everyone. Just put it. I don't know.
I mean, put it this way, it brings up the topic of, and David, you touched on it earlier. It's like there's so much to answer in the last episode.
Yeah.
I'm willing to put down bets that we get an hour episode. There's no way you can get through all that in even a 40-minute format. You need an extra 20 minutes to wrap all this up. It's so much. Even if you're just setting up, there's still a lot to do for the setup to be effective. So I really hope it's not a 30-minute episode.
No, it won't be.
Yeah, for me, I just struggle. I don't know. I'm kind of struggling to see how things are resolved. Like, it's easy to say, sure, there'll be Wanda versus Agatha. There'll be Vision versus Vision at some point. But what happens with Pietro? What happens with Monica? What happens with the children?
Yep.
Like, I just don't know where they're going to go, how they're going to resolve all those different areas.
Well, they do the MCU way, which is you'll get answers in the movies over an extended period of time. You'll get a little bit of an answer in maybe Captain Marvel too. So
but we're talking about like even setting up the question at this point.
Yeah,
takes a little time.
Yeah, they're all literally standing in the same place.
Yeah.
That's true. That's true. No, but I mean, like, oh, what happened to let's say there's a big fight and something. It's like, oh, the kids disappear or whatever. It's like, well, you get your answer in 5 years' time. Don't worry about it just now.
Yeah,
that's where I'm coming from.
Yeah,
but I understand.
Like Loki escaping in
exactly
in Endgame.
Yeah, they might not get a payoff for everything.
We need a reason to escape New Jersey. It's like
Never.
Never stay New Jersey. New Jersey is nice.
On a theory note, though, I've decided to throw away all my theories, and I've come back down to, like, I think in the next one we're gonna get Wanda finding like the payout from Vision's pension, where it says the amount of money that he left her, because clearly we're now involved in superhero finances, and that's what I was gonna say.
Equity, baby, equity.
Yeah. Vision was worth how much?
I was like, after I finished the episode, like the only thing that came to mind was that line from Beyonce, which is like, "Pay me in equity, watch me reverse out of debt." Like, That's because I'm like, he's got all the money in the world. They're Avengers, and he got a crappy plot in New Jersey. I'm like, come on.
In the most rundown town. I was like, what?
you say that, but two things. Civil War, I'm pretty sure part of the agreement to be registered superheroes came with a pension, making them the highest paid public officials in America and Wakanda, of course.
Yeah.
And why did he choose the plot which happened to be next to the bewitched house with a witch's basement next to it?
So you're saying the deed was planted in the car?
It's possible. It's possible.
Well, and they do say that there was a last will and testament, right?
Yep.
So, but we don't necessarily know that this is it, right? It could have been planted. So
that was the only thing in the envelope.
Yeah, or that was the only thing. Yeah, true. So superhero finances are a thing now, guys.
Let's pivot again. Do you guys have any more questions that came up apart from the finances of Vision finances? I think my only question that came to me was like, what? And I don't know why I keep going back to it. It's like, what will White Vision sound like? And I don't know why it's such an important question to me. I need to know, and I don't know why. It doesn't matter to anyone else but me.
I bet it's Paul Bettany. I bet he plays both of them.
And which would be what that quote from Paul Bettany saying that he's going to act the last episode is going to be acting opposite to somebody he wanted to act forever, or since he's been a kid. And it's like, well, it's fucking himself, isn't it? Yeah. Which is one of the greatest troll of all time, if it's really that.
Always wanted to do a one-man show.
Yep.
Oh, if he like recreates, you guys remember Jim Carrey's acceptance speech where he won against himself, and he was like, "I refuse to lose against myself."
That would be so that.
It was like the MTV like movie awards or something.
That's hilarious.
But so the other one that's going around though is that it could be, which I had not thought of, which it could be Dick Van Dyke, because Dick Van Dyke was a consulting producer on WandaVision. That's for sure. And I'm like, playing what
though? Yeah,
White Vision.
Well, as the voice.
That's the voice. Oh. The voice of White Vision. And I'm totally joking about this, but
I almost prefer mine, which is Friday. It would be Friday's voice, like a lady's voice to in the body of Vision. That would be awesome.
Yeah, I think that Bettany's trolling us like big time.
Oh, yeah.
I don't think it's as big of a real as we thought it was going to be anymore.
It's the one constant that we've had in pretty much across every single MC well, in the MCU, it's always like the craziest theories. It's never that. Like every time we look too much into it, it's like they always go with the most simple explanation or the most straightforward or the so. Like when I mentioned Al Pacino like a couple episodes ago, and I was like, yeah, it makes sense, but it's it's like, nah, they never go there. That's why I'm really riding hard on the Doctor Strange, because Doctor Strange is already there. It costs them nothing to drop in there, and you don't need explanations. Well, that's it. Just a phone call. Yeah, it is under contract. It's a lot easier. Anything else? Any other questions that you guys had? I think I saw Darcy's story. This one intrigued me. What we didn't get any.
I think I was just listing out things that I'm concerned, like Monica Rambeau's story, Darcy's story, Agent Woo. I'm invested in Agent Woo. Sorry, I am.
Yes.
And then also like the rationale for Hayward, because it seems so ominous, and I was just like, oh, it's just building stuff. I'm like, no, we got. There's more. There's more to the sword story. There's a lot to tie up. That was my point with those questions.
I'm sort of getting his behavior in the same way that we talked about mental health. I'm putting him as somebody who's suffering from PTSD. So again, mental health, as in somebody that was there during the blip, and somebody that had to suffer the consequences of what happened. So, that it was something that happened because of the superheroes.
Mm.
And he doesn't want to see that get repeated. He doesn't want to have to deal with that stuff again. So he's taking all the steps to not having this repeating again. So I think I thought he was a villain, as in, with magical powers, but I think he's just a guy that was there and throughout the entire mess, and he's just trying to use the same tactics that he's actually literally using the same tactics that the same methods that Tony Stark.
Yeah,
he's using Vision. It's like, I want to protect everyone.
Yeah,
I'm rebuilding him.
Yeah.
Boom, let's go. And he's probably using the same technology than Tony Stark's, because there's no stone there. It's the Ark.
Yeah. But then I just don't get why he would just like. So what? White Vision's going in there to kill everyone. Like, there's citizens in there, like regular people in there. So what are his intentions by sending White Vision in there?
I think he's going with the if I have to kill a bunch of people just to get rid of one or two bad apples, so be it. They're like casualties of the war, right? They just happen to be there, but wrong place, wrong time, and there's no other way to deal with it. Just might as well deal with it that way. So I don't think he's thinking rationally, because of, again, if we go with the PTSD route, it's like, I really can't be dealing with something on the on the macroscopic level and be really chirurgical with it, and like being really specific with it. I'm just gonna napalm the whole thing, get rid of it, and then.
But also, Vision isn't napalm. Right? Like, his powers aren't such that he would go in and just destroy the whole hex and everything in it. So
he's a robot. He's just there taking orders. So he'll do whatever they tell him to do, right?
I mean, the nature of, like, if they were sending in
the Hulk.
I don't know.
Hulk.
The Hulk.
The Hulk is a
go
bomb.
in and physically he's just gonna tear stuff up.
Correct.
Vision's powers don't have that kind of nature to them. So I wonder what he's actually going to, like, what the objective will be when he's sent into the hex.
And also, like, the whole scene when Wanda goes to visit him in the past is very interesting, because one, he decides to let her in, knowing that Vision is taken apart, and then shows her Vision. And I'm like, man, that, like, for someone that just lost someone, to see your loved one dismembered in front of you, being taken apart, is really unkind. Like, that's just really just being horrible, if I'm honest.
But
and I wonder if he
asked for.
She did ask for, yes, in all fairness. Good point.
I think he might have done that because when she touches him, I think he was hoping that there was a chance that would bring him back to life.
Yeah.
And that's what I was saying. Exactly. Yep. Yes. I think that he feels he needs Wanda, and he's going to deploy White Vision because I bet you White Vision doesn't have the abilities that normal Vision has, and he's deploying into the hex to try to get them to that level again. So I don't know, but yeah, I just think that his motives are still very up in the air, and we need to get more before moving on, is my view, but maybe they don't.
I think Hayward is sort of, I think that we're going towards a phase where, because that was in the comics also, where superheroes are looked as, at least by people on Earth, as this, they're now the new baddies because of all this, the places they've wrecked and all the lives they,
of Civil
how many
War.
people, right? Yeah. And I think Hayward is in that mindset where it's like, she's a superhero. Like, we were in trouble partly because of her, right? All the things that happened a few years ago, she was in it. So like, he's got no sympathy for her. It's like, well, you want to see the body, go and see it. Of course, there might be the motive of, if she touches him, that might power him up, and he might do that. But the way I saw it when I was watching it, I was like, yeah, I think he's like, I got no time for you, because at the end of it, you're like,
part of
it. You're the problem. So that's how I kind of now view Hayward to be. He's trying to do his job to protect people, and the people he's protecting is not the superheroes. Like, he's not counting on them. He's going to use them as weapon. If he can build more weapons like Vision, he will do.
And that's how they treat her when she comes out of the hex with the
yes,
with the drone.
Yep.
It's guns pointed. They treat her like a threat.
And again, if you look at it, the end of Spider-Man 2, Spider-Man's gonna have to go into hiding, and he's being portrayed as the bad guy because he's the guy who killed. I forgot his name now, but yeah, then Spider-Man 3 which is being filmed right now. He'd see him going away. Yeah, Mysterio. And Mysterio frames Spider-Man as the bad guy, and now you're seeing that shift of superheroes being loved by everyone to now. Maybe they're not also kids friendly. Right. Any more questions? Anything else comes to mind? We've gone through it. We've done it. Any hopes? Let's leave with that. Anything you want to see in episode 9? In particular, like a character or
I want to see Monica Rambeau do some badass shit with some badass powers.
Same. Yep. I want to see that and Doctor Strange. That's it.
Justice for Sparky. That's what I got to say. Sparky needs to come back here, man.
Someone's gotta pay.
It's like he's all got like red eyes and he's got like magic flowing around him and stuff. He's like up in the air. Yeah, totally. He's got like a little suit with a cape. Dude, I'd be there for that all week. Yeah, I feel that we need to start a hashtag Justice for Sparky. That's all I want.
No,
walk away. My grand theories are gone. All I want is a dog to show up again.
Oh my god! If they do that, then you win. All right, cool. Whew, we've done it. Thanks, Dave, for joining again. One more week.
Yes,
we'll catch you in the next one. Do you want to plug your podcast one more time?
Yes, I am the host and one part of the Grit and Grind Basketball Podcast, along with Tom and the other members, Michael Downey and Jose Garcia Vidal. We post our podcast every Wednesday, so tune in if you're into basketball.
We will do, and I am already, because I'm part of the podcast, so I'm already all tuned in. Thanks, JC, for spending an hour with us and walking us through the episode as you do so well. And
anytime.
Yes, anytime. Well, anytime will be next week. One more time.
Yeah, exactly.
One last time.
Don't reach for the tissues again, Tom.
Reach for the tissues. I need to go shopping.
Yeah.
Let's
keep the sentient weapon in storage, please.
Right. Hey, ladies. On that bombshell, please subscribe to us on Apple Podcasts, YouTube, Spotify, wherever you can see us and find us. Please hit the subscribe button. Also, thanks and a big shout out to the 900 and something subscribers we currently have on Instagram, and I just discovered now the 300 subscribers as well. Follow us. We've got on Twitter as well. I didn't know that we were there, but that's a cool thing too. Thank you guys for giving us your thumbs up. So I was going to say, but that's a YouTube thing. Talking about YouTube, please subscribe there also. We would like to see those numbers go up because we would like to be YouTubers one day. I called my mom. I said, Mom, I want to be a YouTuber. I want to change career. And she said, yes, darling, yes. 39, that's exactly what you should be doing. So she believes in me, and you should believe in the same thing she believes in. Thank you, Mom. Anyway, that's the longest outro of all time.
You know what I believe in? In the other podcast series that we just dropped around Black History Month that people should check out, because we've got David in as a guest on that one as well, and we're dropping our recommendations around Black History Month and how you can go check out properties that are either Black owned, created, or star, and definitely go check it out. It's a great conversation.
Yeah, 3 episodes so far, 3 parts. Episode 4 is dropping sometime this week, and then we'll have one more, which I'm actually very excited about. Anyway, again, thanks guys for joining. We'll catch you in the recap of episode 9 next week. Same time, same place. Thank you very much for listening. Goodbye.
Justice for Sparky.